Good afternoon, everyone. We will go ahead and get started, but before I do that, I want to make sure that you can hear me. So if one of our awesome team members, if somebody could give me a thumbs up, that would be great. Good, thank you, perfect. So welcome to the first ever virtual Student Success Summit hosted by the Michigan Center for Student Success. We're so grateful that you could join us today and hopefully for our entire Student Success Summit series. Today's session really focuses on some of the work that we're doing at the Michigan Center for Student Success. You'll notice throughout the summit this year, we have a similar cadence to what we normally do with opening up the summit, talking a lot about some of the work that we've been doing over the last year and what we're looking forward to for the next year. And then tomorrow we'll have our keynote speaker. And so we are looking forward to seeing you throughout the summit. I am joined today by three of my fantastic colleagues. Precious Miller is the coordinator of our My Best project, which focuses on building economic stability, and she's working with 25 colleges in Michigan. Many of you know Jenny Schenker, who is the Director of Research and Institutional Practice, and really has been a champion of student success at the MCCA since the start of the Student Success Center in 2011. My name's Erica Oriens, and I'm the Executive Director. And finally, we're joined by Katie Girardello, who many of you know has been working on our transfer work for the last several years in our partnership with the public universities and independent colleges. That work will continue, but Katie will be shifting into a new role, which we're calling the Manager of Network Engagement. And she'll be working on transfer and several other projects that we're bringing on board at the MCCA. So we're so grateful that Katie gets to continue to work with us at the center. I want to talk a little bit about how you can engage in our session today. As we often do, we recommend that you rename yourself to include your college or your organization at the end of your name. And so if you click on the participant menu, you should be able to see your name, click on more, rename, and then you can rename yourself to include your institution at the end of your name. That's really helpful. It's great to see so many community colleges registered for the summit. We will use the chat for folks to be able to ask questions, and we'll pause periodically throughout the presentation to make sure that we can capture some of those questions. And then you may know, if you've been involved in some of our work over the last couple of months, that we have started to invest a lot of time and energy in continuing these conversations on Twitter. So join us at MCCA-CSS and tweet with the hashtag MCSS Summit 20 to continue the conversation of the things we're talking about at the Student Success Summit. I guess we like to think about this as the hallway conversations that you often have during our fantastic breaks. Unfortunately, we're not providing desserts or snacks during the Twitter chat, but at least you'll be able to talk with your colleagues as well. We also want to recognize that while many of you are on video, we want to acknowledge that video is optional. At least among our group, we know that your pets, whether that be dogs or cats, or your children, or the mailman, or your neighbor's lawnmower, or in our case, Precious welcomed a little baby boy a couple of months ago. So you may need to take a little bit of a break from video. We get it. We may need to take a break from video as well. So please feel free to do that, but we also like to see your faces as well. We have included the slides and handouts on our website where you were able to register, And it looks like Katie put that information in the chat. And so if you're having a hard time seeing my slides or you want to have a copy of the slides, you can go out to the MCCA website under the 2020 Student Success Summit, and you should see those slides on there as well. As I mentioned earlier, we are asking colleges and those of you who participate to continue the conversation on Twitter. We have a special Twitter focus session on Friday, but just wanted you to have the information about using the particular hashtag and how you can find the Center for Student Success on Twitter. As I mentioned, this is the first time that we're hosting a virtual summit, and hopefully the last time, but you never know. And so we wanted to point out the other 5 sessions that we're having this week. Tomorrow, we are really excited to welcome Anthony Abraham Jack as our keynote speaker, and then a wonderful panel of colleges that will talk about the privileged poor in community college. Dr. Jack wrote a book called The Privileged Poor, and it's really a fantastic read. I'd strongly encourage you to check it out and listen to his keynote address tomorrow. He's terrific, and we're really looking forward to hearing from him. Finally, on Friday, we'll be doing Real Values in a Virtual World. So we have some fantastic guest speakers that can talk about how they've been engaging with the community of community colleges and community of learners on Twitter and on other social media platforms. And so we'll be focusing on that tomorrow. And then we'll have an opportunity for those of you who may be experienced or new to Twitter to have a Twitter conversation on Friday afternoon as well. Next week, every year we have a really popular session that focuses on policy perspectives. And this year we have some great speakers, a panel of speakers that will focus on federal and state policy issues. I say it every year, but I think this is going to be a really exciting year for federal and state policy. So I encourage you to tune into that one to hear about those policy perspectives from our colleagues who are experts in that field. On Thursday, September 24th, we'll talk a lot about mobility and the intersection of equity, which is a thread that runs through a lot of our presentations during the Student Success Summit. We have some terrific speakers who are researchers and experts in student mobility and addressing inequitable outcomes in higher education. So that will be another fantastic presentation that we encourage you to join next Thursday. And then on Friday, our fantastic evaluator for the Guided Pathways Initiative will be joining us to talk about the 6 years of our Pathways work in Michigan and much of the work that you've been doing at your colleges. Jenny and I attend a lot of national meetings that talk about Guided Pathways, and I can't believe how much has happened in Michigan as it relates to Guided Pathways and how many great examples we have to show from community colleges across Michigan. So please plan to join us for any of those sessions, or if you're unavailable, all of them will be recorded with the exception of Tony Jack's keynote tomorrow. So you can look for those on our website. I want to open up our session today talking about some changes that we've made at the Center for Student Success. And what we've done is we spent some time over the last few months refreshing our vision, our values, and our strategies at the Student Success Center. The center was created in 2011, and we were the second Student Success Center created in the country, and it was really an experiment. We were supported by the Kresge Foundation with the idea that community colleges working together and learning from each other to address student success issues might be something that would be valuable to colleges in Michigan. Here we are 9 years later, and it seems like it is something that's still valuable. And we wanted to make sure that our vision and our values really reflected the changes that have happened over the last 9 years. The other reason that this was really critical to us is the MCCA put out a statement in July addressing police violence, racism, and then the inequality in our country and in higher education. And as part of that work, we as a staff really reflected on how our work can address racism and inequality in Michigan and across the country. And one of the things we realized is that while equity has really been an implicit part of our work, we wanted to make it a much more explicit part of our work. And so we've decided to do that through our vision, values, and strategies. We also wanted to make some pretty firm commitments to things that we wanted to do. Condemning violence and condemning racism without putting together a plan about how you're going to do something about it. I think that what we wanted to do is make very clear commitments about what was important to us. So these are the commitments that MCCA focused on. And at the Center for Student Success, I just want to highlight the first 4 commitments that we're focusing on and we really feel like is core to our work at the Center for Student Success. We want to focus on policies that eliminate barriers to higher education. We want to do a better job of disaggregating our student outcomes, identifying those equity gaps, and then doing something about it. More specifically, in commitments number 3 and 4, we want to increase the number and percentage of students who pass college level English and math, knowing how critical those metrics are for students' long-term success in higher education. And then we want to create more opportunities for students, and especially marginalized students, to transfer and earn an associate degree and a bachelor's degree. We will talk about each one of those. As you'll notice, these really relate to the projects that we've been focusing on at the center and making that focus on equity a little bit more explicit beginning here in 2020. But before that, we wanted to share with you some more details of our refreshed vision, values, and strategies. So to do that, we didn't want to just talk through a lot of slides. And so what we did is we put it to music. So for those music lovers out there, I invite you to tune in for the next 3 minutes or so for a terrific video that talks about our new vision. Sorry, let me back out of the video. All right, I hope I'm back where you can see me, or not me, but you can see the current initiative slide that we have up now. So I hope you enjoyed that. We thought it might be nice to look through that without necessarily talking through it. We will talk about it a lot more in the rest of our presentation today. And we'll talk about it a lot more in the upcoming work that we have going on as well. I noticed in the chat, some of you have noticed that the music was written and performed by Larry Shanker. And you are right, that is the husband of Jenny Shanker. So we are super grateful to Larry for doing that for us and for Jenny for putting it together. I have listened to it several times and I just enjoy it so much. So thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Larry, so much for doing that for us. So now we come to the part of the program that a lot of people like, which is an update on our current initiatives. And I think some of the reason why people like us to provide this update is because although I think we forget about it sometimes at the center, many of you are involved in some of these projects, but not necessarily all of them. So I think it's great that we're able to provide this update for everybody today and provide an opportunity for you to ask questions. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jenny.
Hi, everybody. So I'm kicking this off with a reminder that Guided Pathways is the center of our work, much of our work, and has been for 6 years now. I can't believe it. And it's going to continue to be the foundation for our continued institutional transformation work. And it reinforces these values as we are strengthening our holistic student support. We're improving equitable outcomes in developmental education and for students who transfer. And all of those things are outcomes of implementation of Guided Pathways. So, oops. And Erica's going to advance the slide, yeah. I just tried to advance the slide myself, but that doesn't. Just a quick update on what we've been doing in the actual Guided Pathways Institute 2.0. We have delivered all 6 of the meetings that we planned when we kicked this off 3 years ago. All of the materials are now posted on the event pages if they happened in the past since we've redesigned the website, or they're all posted at myguidedpathways.org. We are, along with other resources related to Guided Pathways, and I'll be adding more case studies as we get through our evaluation. I'll be adding more case studies and little examples to the Pathways resources page 2. We are collecting responses from the Mentor and Study Circle colleges between now and mid-November for the Scale of Adoption assessment. This will be the 3rd time that we've formally completed the Scale of Adoption assessment with validation interviews. Your forms, if you are a participating college, are due on September 30th, just a handy reminder. Mark your calendar. And then we will be providing information about how you can sign up for a call. These have been really great. Not only has this been a great way to collect information about what you all are doing on campus and how Guided Pathways is progressing, but it's a great professional development for us at the Center for Student Success to learn about how colleges are working on and approaching and attacking these issues. This year, we're really excited. I'm going to talk later in this presentation about our mentoring network, and we're really excited to be inviting some of our Guided Pathways mentors to join us on the validation calls. So hopefully be sharing that fantastic professional development with them. And I mentioned we are in the midst of our evaluation. Some of you have participated perhaps in an evaluation interview. with Dawn Coleman, and you will see some of the results of her work as well as a review of our years of Pathways at Pathways to the Future next Friday. And now I'm going to turn it over to Precious.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and thank you again for everyone for joining today's summit session. You may hear some coos in the background, so just please bear with me as I am balancing two worlds, as many of you might be at this time. So I will be providing you all some information and update on the My Best project and the amazing work that the colleges are doing. We currently have 25 colleges participating in the project. Each participating college has a My Best team of individuals that have various roles within the institution, and we find this to be very important because it supports the implementation of My Best strategies, and so those strategies can be implemented at scale. Now, based on the enrollment numbers from the participating colleges during the 2018-2019 school year, we see that the impact of My Best extends to 122,327 students, which is so amazing and very impressive. The numbers represent the individuals that this work is impacting, and it further proves the importance of our work. And so we have some project partners listed here below. Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is a state agency that oversees the state public assistance services. And we have Isaac, my son, making his debut after being asleep this entire time. We also welcome Public Policy Associates, which are going to be providing focus groups this spring of 2021. We're going to be doing a select few of colleges for those focus groups. And we have Michigan Association of United Ways, who are providing the ALICE report. VFA, Erica's been doing a great series of VFA, so you can check out our list of events to attend and learn more about those. And then we have Trellis Research. They're going to be just disseminating a survey to students come October 19th. So colleges who are joining us, you have until October 1st to complete a list of things to make sure you are on target for that survey. All right, so with MDHHS, we have the My Bridges portal, which offers a variety of supports for students to access from state to local resources in their area. In one spot, they can access all of the things that they might need to meet some of their basic needs, and colleges have the opportunity to be trained by My Bridges for those partnerships and to learn more about that portal. The Student Financial Wellness Survey, we currently have 19 colleges who are on track for that survey to go out in October. Again, thank you for those colleges and to those who are joining the fleet. For the Michigan Association of United Ways, the ALICE data, we received information about colleges sharing the ALICE data with faculty. ALICE data gives us an opportunity to learn and understand more about what's happening in our communities. ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. And so ALICE helps us better understand the individuals that we're serving and can advocate for students. The last thing that I'll share is just a list of things that colleges are doing to support student success, from normalizing the receival of basic needs by putting this information in their syllabi, to transportation vouchers, partnerships with four-year institutions for counseling programs has been a phenomenal asset to students who might not otherwise have opportunities for mental health supports or the finances for those. Hotspots and laptop loans have been instrumental for students to have access to classes and shifting that technology divide. And then the development of partnerships with local farmers to provide fresh produce to students, and really extending an opportunity for students to meet all of their basic needs, but in a healthy way. And then the organization of mobile food pantries is one of the most creative things I have heard, ensuring that students have access to their food regardless of their transportation situation. And so we see that many of these examples are show how colleges are offering supports to students and really tie back into our values at MCSS. Equity, again, remains the core of the work that's taking place in MyBest, and we strive for all students to have access to these supports, regardless of their program of study or background. And so thank you for all of the work that you guys are doing. And with that, I will pass it over to Katie.
Thanks, Precious. And that just, some of you, actually none of you know this except for my colleagues, I became an aunt for the third time yesterday to a brand new baby boy. And I am just dying to get my hands on him. But he's still in the hospital and the parents are requesting a little bit of a, little time off before you can get your hands on the newborn. So Precious's little baby coos makes me just want to hold my new nephew. Whose name is Erasmus. They're calling him Raz, which made me, if you're a musical fan, made me want to sing the Razzle Dazzle song from Chicago. But here we are talking about transfer pathways. Some of you know, for me, this is a very true way that I'm living my values because I believe very strongly in all of the pathways that community colleges offer, but certainly the major access pathway through the community college transfer pathway to the baccalaureate programs in that regard. And I am thrilled to let you know that as of today, we have 10 brand new multi-institutional associate to bachelor's degree transfer pathways in the disciplines that you can read on the screen. It has been painstaking and motivating and inspiring work to have almost 1,000 faculty and administrators from, I think, close to 60 colleges and universities across the state come together to develop these multi-institutional agreements. Some people say, well, what does that mean? I can't really call it a statewide agreement because in Michigan, as you know, we don't do policy the same way that other folks do across the country. But in some cases, I think we do it better because folks come to the table willingly, and we have been able to develop new access pathways and on-ramps to these disciplines through these pathways. So I'm very excited to let you know that they are all up and running as of today's date, and you can find more details about them online. I will be putting in a link here to the chat in just a moment. And you can see in the next slide some more information about the pathways. All right. Oh, Erica just put, she put the link in, but it's not the same one I was going to share. Sorry. You can find all of the agreements and some advising materials at the link that was just input. And you can see on the screen a chart of all of the participating institutions. And again, everything in Michigan is voluntary. So you can see that for very many of the pathways, nearly all community colleges, if not all 28 of the public community colleges are participating. And we have a good contingent of four-year colleges and universities, including many from the public sector, as well as a number of private and independent colleges who I gotta say I have been super impressed by as well, because many of them have taken the opportunity to join this project, recognizing that they really do need to bolster their capacity to serve our students with better transfer pathways and better support systems. And I have been very impressed by the folks that have come to the table from both the public, but also the private and independent colleges and universities. So we are thrilled to have those up and running, and many of you are probably familiar with the web address that Erica shared, the mytransfer.org, which is the updated and enhanced Michigan Transfer Network, which houses a truly statewide database of transferable credits from all 66 participating institutions, including a whole lot of new equivalencies that have been developed as part of the MyTransfer pathways. One of the assurances in those pathways is that all participating institutions not only agree to accept the credit that is outlined in the agreement, but that they also have loaded those to the MTN database so that students have clear, transparent information and assurance that those courses will indeed transfer and count toward the bachelor's programs that they're interested in. In addition to all of those MyTransfer Pathways courses, there are a number of other equivalencies that institutions are responsible for keeping updated as per the language in the appropriations bills for both the community colleges and the public sector universities. And then a number of those private and independent colleges that voluntarily choose to do so. And we think it's pretty cool that when we averaged out usage numbers, about 15,000 course equivalency searches have been performed in a given week. So people are using this new tool, both students and advisors and faculty, and we think it's really awesome. There are some excellent resources on the back end, and I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to tell you to check those out and let you know if you haven't yet. I would love to sit down on a 30-minute Zoom and show you the ropes and help you get acclimated to those tools and resources that I think are very useful for institutional strategy. We have also been strengthening our transfer pathways with some integration to another project that Jenny Schenker has been leading. The Right Math at the Right Time has been meeting with the guidance of a statewide steering committee of mathematicians who have been overseeing the work for several years now. And they just added a new strand of their work, which was to try to improve transferability of the 3 MTA math pathways, which are college algebra, which also leads into calculus, introductory statistics, and quantitative reasoning. And as part of that integration, we invited those mathematicians to actually come to the My Transfer Pathways faculty summits and provide some recommendations to their peers in other disciplines on which math competencies and which math pathways would be more suitable for students in their program areas. Some of you know when you try to decipher general education requirements, sometimes at the community college, but also at the university level, it can be very challenging if you're a transfer student to try to understand what you actually have to take because there can be a bevy of options. And so one of the things that we felt like a la Guided Pathways was that we could help to cut down some of that confusion if we could make more specific recommendations. So we were very pleased to have those folks helping move those transfer pathways forward with the addition of those math recommendations. And we are excited to let you know that we are doing some ongoing work to make sure that those courses, those entry-level courses in each of those MTA pathways are transferring. And I just dropped a link into the chat where you can go out and take a look at some reports that actually show where there are still gaps in that equivalency. I don't want to get down and dirty with that because it'll get tedious real quick, but if you have questions or you are curious about why your institution doesn't have green boxes, which is what everybody's striving for in those math grids, please feel free to reach out to Jenny or myself and we can talk with you further about that. And then finally, we are looking to continue to strengthen transfer throughout the state. The funded My Transfer project actually ends in 2 weeks. And so that's good news for me that I have a new title coming on board because it means that my job is not ending in 2 weeks. And I'll have the opportunity to work with my colleagues on strengthening transfer and some other ways that we can strengthen the Michigan Student Success Network in a variety of capacities, but 3 of them listed here, one being a new planning grant that we received in collaboration with the Michigan Independent Colleges and Universities to look further into the community college to private independent college transfer pathway, and particularly in liberal arts program areas. So we have been doing some planning for that, and we'll be kicking off some interviews in the next few weeks to get down and dirty with what people think about this and better understand how we can support students who want to transfer to private and independent institutions or in the liberal arts at those institutions. We are also actively preparing proposals that look like they are going well in the proposal queue with the various philanthropies to strengthen the My Transfer pathways in certain humanities disciplines, and then also to elevate transfer pathways in certain career technical education programs. And some of you might say, well, that's not typical, but those of you who are down into those programs know that it is becoming more and more typical for students in those areas to need baccalaureate education in order to move through their career progression. And more four-year institutions are becoming more familiar with and comfortable with awarding credit for career tech ed programs and want to create pathways for students who are following those career paths. So we are very excited about those proposals and we'll hope to have more information to share with you soon about those projects as the proposals move forward. Back to Jenny.
All right. So I mentioned earlier on the kind of the aspect of guided pathways that involves looking at the equity implications of how we approach developmental education. And we have a couple of projects that are related to that, which I'm going to talk about. But most of all, I wanted to emphasize, and we talked about this yesterday if you were in our VFA webinar, the growing body of evidence that suggests that completing Gateway English and mathematics within the first year is associated with improved outcomes for all students, and does have the potential to close those equity gaps for racial, socioeconomic or students who are what we consider less prepared for college. The pathway to closing these equity gaps leads through innovation in how we help all students make the transition to college level courses within their first year of enrollment. So the first project I'm going to talk about is scaling up what works, the MI Start to Finish project. We have colleges who are participating who have committed to implementing or scaling up proven models of co-rec instruction in math. And one of the things, let me take one step back as I read my slide. We in Michigan have had great success in encouraging the implementation of the Accelerated Learning Program. We had a great funded project on this a number of years ago. And it is starting to show fruit in terms of the data that we looked at yesterday with the VFA. Our colleges have kind of lagged, as has the national work in mathematics. So in My Start to Finish, we will have an opportunity to kind of build on that success in English, and also to put in place more of this co-requisite work for Gateway Mathematics, particularly focused on those math pathways that Katie just talked about as part of the transfer work, those quantitative reasoning, preparation for calculus, and introductory statistics pathways. We have 14 colleges who have committed to this deeper work, and we're holding quarterly roundtables for developmental education faculty, and we have one coming up in October. As always, the MCCA events page is your best friend for all of this, all of these events that we may refer to throughout this presentation. But I did want to call out those quarterly roundtables. And we're tracking progress by using a scale of adoption assessment for developmental education, and also looking at those VFA early momentum metrics. So we're hoping to see movement in the work that the colleges are doing reflected in that data, particularly over the next year or so. A second project that I wanted to highlight today is focused on underprepared students, is this idea of improving transitions for students who are leaving high school. We are embarking on a partnership progress project, third time's the charm, partnership project with our friends at the Michigan College Access Network to gather a cohort of colleges who are interested in working with their K-12 partners to collaborate and design projects that are going to focus on either changing the way that students who are coming out of high school are placed in either developmental or college level courses, and or on how high schools can prepare students via transition courses for the math that they are planning to complete when they matriculate to college. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach. We're looking to tap those colleges who are already committed to work within My Start to Finish to implement the co-rec, because the last thing that we want to do is to improve a transition from high school into a system that is already broken in terms of multi-course sequences of developmental ed. We're looking at two cohorts, one with a January, one with a June start, who will receive technical assistance via virtual workshops, as well as very small incentive grants. And some people have already received some information about this. There'll be more information about this to come. But also, you're all invited to join the Learning Circle, who will have access to virtual workshops. We're going to have TA from our friends at the Charles A. Dana Center, at SOVA, at CCRC, and various other national partners. So look for more about MyPAT, Michigan Partnership for Academic Transitions, because everything must have an acronym and preferably a hashtag too.
Great, thanks, Jenny. Next, we want to transition to talking about some of the work that we're doing using the voluntary framework of accountability. So for those of you who may not know, the VFA was created by the American Association of Community Colleges to reflect a broader cohort of students and understand more about those student outcomes. And so, as many of you know, traditional measures of success in higher education don't account for the fact that a majority of community college students may enroll part-time or may take longer than the typical 100 or 150% of time to graduate. And most of those national metrics really only look at the full-time first-time students. The VFA really attempts to take a broader approach to that and track more students. And many of us were at a meeting, a Guided Pathways Institute, I think it was a couple of years ago at Muskegon Community College. And I was sitting with a college and they were reflecting on their student outcomes and what data they had available. And that particular college, as they talked through this, they said two things that really impacted me. One was they have a lot of anecdotes that are shared at the institution about student outcomes, but not a lot of hard data to back that up. And then the second thing that they shared is that far too few people at the institution have access to data on our student outcomes. And so the Michigan Community Colleges have been partners with the Voluntary Framework of Accountability for a long time, but we recognize that too few people have access to this information. And so we have launched a series of webinars that we're hosting, we started them in August and we'll be hosting them through November. And the purpose of those is to understand how to read the VFA reports, to increase access to in the use of those reports, increase access to your ability to benchmark with other institutions, either across Michigan or across the country, because we know being able to compare yourself with other institutions is really valuable as you're looking at implementing new practices at your institution. And then the last thing we're doing is sharing a customizable presentation template that you can use at your institution to present your own college data. So we know how hard it is to create resources that can be helpful to faculty and staff. So we're creating a customized template that we can share with you. I described a little bit about the VFA earlier, but I wanted to show you what metrics the VFA captures. And as you know, in most cases, national data sets would really just look at that first category of degree completion, and specifically looking at the bachelor's degree and the associate degree, and then in some cases, certificates. The VFA expands that and tracks students who've earned a degree or a certificate and then did or did not transfer. They also track students who didn't earn a degree at all and transferred to another institution, students who were still enrolled, and then students who left the institution with less than or equal to 30 credits or more than 30 credits. Those metrics have been part of the VFA for several years, but within the last couple years, they also added a set of metrics after the first year of enrollment. And these three sets of metrics are really predictive of longer term outcomes. And so they look at credit accumulation after the first term and the first year, and they can correlate the credit accumulation to students completing a degree after 6 years or transferring. They also track successful completion of college level math and English, which is correlated with completion of a degree. And then finally, they look at fall to next term retention and credit success rate. The VFA also looks at particular subgroups. So they disaggregate the data by gender, by Pell status, by enrollment status, by college readiness, by race, ethnicity, and by age. And the data that we have been sharing with community colleges, we look very specifically at these VFA subgroups. And I'll particularly point out that age and college readiness are two metrics that are very rarely involved in any other data set. And I would encourage you to go back and look at a couple of the webinars that we've already hosted, which have data in those slide decks. And I think you'll be pretty surprised to look at some of the disaggregated outcomes by subgroup. And we have a list a little bit later in the presentation of the upcoming webinars that we have that I would encourage you to attend. Or, as I said, just feel free to take our PowerPoint presentation and edit it to meet your needs. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jenny.
Hi, me again. So along with the VFA, we have another kind of cross-cutting initiative, and I referred to that in the beginning with my Guided Pathways remarks, which is our MCSS Mentoring Network. We kicked off this network almost 2 years, well, yeah, a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, in association with Guided Pathways, with some support for our Jobs for the Future. And we have been fortunate to be selected actually to continue on for another 2 years. We're being supported again by JFF with the new grant and a kind of a refreshed strategy. So what we're doing is we're recruiting and have recruited a network of mentors who are going to provide support across our initiatives and projects. So not just focused on Guided Pathways, but on all of the things that we've been talking about so far. And they are going to, you will see them as moderators and panelists here at the summit, and have already seen them at a couple of our previous Guided Pathways Institutes, some of our upcoming workshops and other events. Our mentors are also supporting our social media efforts, so you'll see them tweeting, and some of them tweeting today. And I appreciate those of you who are already on Twitter sharing their thoughts and ideas and joining, continuing the conversation there. They're also going to be assisting with collecting information and feedback from colleges via the Scale of Adoption assessment calls. And we're not only doing Scale of Adoption for Guided Pathways this year, we're also doing a Scale of Adoption for developmental education and a Scale of Adoption for the My Best Work. So we've got 3 different instruments that we're using to collect information about what colleges are doing and specifically what practices they are implementing, scaling, and working towards for helping those students be more successful. And then finally, of course, mentors are available to provide individualized coaching on short-term improvement projects. And we're working on kind of rolling out a new process for what that will look like and how to engage with a mentor if you're confronting a challenge. So we're really happy to have 13 volunteers who are working with us, and with Katie, who is going to be supporting us as the network engagement manager. So we're looking to this mentoring network to really kind of help us increase our capacity to engage with you. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting about her other title, Tweeter in Chief. I want to stop and pause before I go on to talk about this kind of a transition to upcoming things. But I wanted to pause to see if anybody has any question. We have thrown a lot of information at you, a lot of links in the chat to more information, but I wanted to see, I invited people to put a question in the chat if they had one at this time, and I don't see any questions yet, but I want to just, let's take, and I could use to take a breath. So let's take a breath and see if people could have any questions that they want to type into the chat. Okay, I am receiving subliminal hurry up and get the rest of these slides done. Jenny, we have no questions messages from those in the audience. So again, if you have questions, if something occurs to you that you'd like for us to talk more about or clarify, please drop it in the chat and we will get to you. So now turning kind of a little bit to new stuff. We have been working on growing our faculty connections as well as our mentoring. Many of you may have participated in a roundtable, Faculty Connections Roundtable this summer. We started by talking about how to make the transition to virtual learning for hands-on courses and activities, and kind of that it grew into a sort of a series of conversations related to how we teach and learn during these pandemic times, these unprecedented times where the ground is shifting underneath our feet. And we took that information and we turned it into a publication, which is now available on the, it's on the MCSS website. It is called Growing a Faculty Engagement Network in Michigan. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, that's what it's about, is growing a faculty engagement network in Michigan. It talks about our work with the regional faculty conversations that many of you have participated in, and how we have kind of leveraged that faculty engagement structure and strategy to now engage even more closely with faculty around what they're doing to teach and learn within their disciplines during this time. So I would encourage you to check that out. And we will be following up our faculty roundtables from the summer with a short series of roundtables that will be cross-disciplinary, but we will include discipline-specific breakouts. So 3 Mondays at the end of October and the beginning of November, where you can come together and talk with your colleagues about hands-on learning in a virtual world, about creating connected community, and about hacking the system for ideas that work in your classrooms. Again, the MCCA events webpage is your best friend for all MCSS web virtual workshops. So you can register for those there. Those are posted now. Still no questions, so I'm going to have to keep talking. So we're sort of, you see we've worked really hard to talk about infusing an explicit focus on equity. And what we realized as we started to look at all of the things that we're doing this fall is that this is actually the autumn of equity. I mean, not that equity will stop when it's not autumn anymore, but it's kind of nice and alliterative anyway. So we're having an autumn of equity. And here are a couple more events coming up that you might want to think about. The Equity-Minded Teaching Strategies series with our friends from the Dana Center. And 2 things that I will say about that. One is, even though the Dana Center is running it, it's for all disciplines. And number 2, it is not, although it is a My Start to Finish event, kind of built into that initiative, it is not at all limited to people who are participating in My Start to Finish, nor to people who are teaching in developmental education. This is going to be a conversation and some professional development on how to truly create an inclusive learning environment with a focus on how you do that in an online class, but also how you would do it in a face-to-face class, as we know that people are currently engaged in both. Our friends from the National Center for Inquiry and Improvement have developed a suite of conversation starters focused on equity and various topics related to equity that can be used by people at all levels within the institution for all occasions where you might want to talk about equity. And they're going to preview those tools on October 7th at a webinar. And then we are going to follow up these Autumn of Equity kind of highlights with 2 equity-focused tweet chats. The Twitter Tuesdays continue. That was the most fun summer camp project ever, and we're so happy to be continuing on into the fall. So stay tuned for more information about our tweet chats on October 29th and November 17th. And still no
Thanks,
question.
Jenny. I'll give you a little bit of a break.
You know what? I did get a question that came to me privately that I thought might be useful for others to hear about as well. If that's okay. Sorry, Erica.
Sure, go ahead.
Someone wanted to know if the My Transfer Pathways work would continue because I mentioned that the funded project was ending. And I want to assure everybody that the 10 agreements that are currently executed will continue as written. And they will be, they have a 3-year shelf life as they say, and so they come up for renewal in the 21-22 academic year. I think that they're valid through June 30th of 2022. And so the associations at MCCA, MASU, and MICU have agreed to convene whatever process will happen to do the renewals of the 10 currently existing agreements. The person's question also asked if we would be looking to add further disciplines. My opinion, and I'll let the boss speak to this as well, is that the funded project from the state will not be regenerated with new funds from the state in order to continue using the paradigm that we have for those My Transfer Pathways. However, as I said in the private chat to the person who asked the question, transfer continues to be a high priority for us and for all of you at your colleges. So we will continue to be looking to infuse the strengthening of transfer pathways into our work. It may not look exactly like the My Transfer Pathways that have been supported by the state, and there may be provisions based on the funds that are garnered, because most of you know that our extra work is all usually funded by philanthropy, so they usually have some vested interest in the program areas that might be coming forward. But we do hope to continue to do additional work around transfer. And I'll let my colleagues weigh in if they want to say anything further about that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that our work on transfer has attracted a lot of attention from national partners as well as philanthropists, and so I think you will be hearing more about transfer. It won't be the same kind of state-led, state-sanctioned work, I think, as Katie said, but I think you will see a lot more about transfer, and there'll be a lot more opportunities to strengthen transfer pathways.
Great, thank you. I don't think I could say any more except to repeat what you all said. And I definitely agree that this is still a huge priority for Michigan community colleges, with at least the information we get from colleges. And as long as it's still a priority for our colleges, it's obviously a priority for us. And so we are really we've learned a lot in the last few years about some of the work that we've done, how that work, some ideas we've borrowed from other states, and how well or not well that translated in Michigan. But we've learned a lot from that, and I think we are stronger because of it. And I know that from talking with many of you, and actually many of our university partners as well, we are stronger because of the work that we've done together. So I want to congratulate all of you who have been involved in that, and really the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into it. On some days for me, more tears than others, but it's been really rewarding work. And I think you should be very proud of yourselves for what you've done. We all spend time, and I know many of you do as well, attending national meetings and conferences, or we used to. Now we just sit at home and then Zoom into them, just like we are today. But I can't tell you how many times people had commented to me, I can't believe you got that done in Michigan. And I think that just is a testament to the great work that all of you do, and how committed you are to this work. So congratulations to all of you for that. I know it's 4 o'clock, it's getting close to the end of the day. And so we wanna wrap up with a few different slides. We'll continue to wrap here a little bit. And if you wanna ask questions, please do so in the chat, or you can raise your hand as well.
Hey, Erica, I'm getting a couple of messages that the chat doesn't seem to be functioning properly for people. So I'm going to ask, folks are indicating that they can only send private messages to us as hosts. If that is true, make sure you're scrolling all the way up. Mine shows an everyone, but it's at the very top of a several hundred person list. So I would invite you to double check. If you click on, there should be a to button. Okay, it says it's a chat setting that the host has to fix. All right, let's
Well,
see.
let's see if we can do that.
I was like,
Um,
man, I'm so popular. These people keep sending me private messages. I'm not even the boss. They just keep me on as a consultant.
Well, let's see if we can, we'll look at that, but while we're doing that, please feel free to use the raise your hand function and we can see.
I fixed it.
Oh, great.
Yay.
Thanks. So you can also raise your hand, but while you're doing that and while we're talking about questions and running through a few other slides, we really appreciate your feedback on these sessions. And we use this for, to plan future events as well. So you can, Katie will put the link in the chat here to our SurveyMonkey, but the other thing you can do is if you open up the camera on your phone, and you can do this on either an Android or an iPhone, and you open up the camera and you point it at your computer screen like I'm doing now, at the top or the bottom of your screen, you should get a website QR code that will take you out to the evaluation for this session. And while you're submitting your evaluation for the session, I'm going to walk through a couple of other slides as well. All right. We previewed a few upcoming events in the slides prior to this, but we wanted to point out a few things that are going on really just over between now and the end of 2020. Our My Best work continues, and we will have a workshop for My Best participating colleges on September 30th. We're also inviting all colleges to join the first half of that meeting for the overview of the VFA for economic stability. So please join us for that. These VFA sessions that we're doing, the VFA is a lot of data. There's a lot in there. And so what we decided to do is break this down into looking at specific parts of that data that really matter for some of the work that you're doing. So last week we, or no, it wasn't last week, it was yesterday. That's the kind of day I've had. But yesterday we did the VFA for DevEd, and you can find those slides available on our website. October 8th, we're doing VFA for transfer. And then on November 10th, we'll be doing VFA for student success. So keep those on your calendar, register for those if you're interested. We also continue our partnership with Macro and their history of doing really excellent transfer work in Michigan. So we've got 2 events that we're hosting at the Macro conference. As of yesterday, registration for Macro was not open yet, but on their website, they did indicate that the registration would be opening soon and it would be free to attend. So we will have 2 sessions available at the Macro conference. Both of them are on November 19th, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. The first one in the morning focuses on how community colleges can make sure coursework transfers from community college to community college, which may seem like a lower priority than making sure your courses transfer to the universities. But we do know that community college to community college transfer is a popular pathway. I think this is particularly important now that many of you are offering online courses. And since we have many other programs out there that are in Michigan anyway, the governor announced the Futures for Frontliners program last week, where we may see some mobility between community colleges that we typically don't see. So please join us for that session. It will be very hands-on, so you'll want to bring your laptop so that you can work with us and the folks that are presenting with us in that session. And then we'll do a session in the afternoon that provides you with some more support around some of the MyTransfer work, both on the website and through the MyTransfer pathways. Katie mentioned a little bit earlier in her presentation, many of you know that the the new transfer network at mytransfer.org is really a fantastic resource for students, but I think it's a super fantastic resource for faculty and staff at community colleges, because we have built out the back end of that site. Really has some fantastic resources that you can use to make sure that transfer is effective at your institution and at the institutions where your students plan to transfer. So look forward to that. And then we'll close out the year with another workshop for MyBest. Our purpose in the MyBest workshop this year was really focused on knowing your students and knowing your community. So that was really our focus in the first year, and is why we focused a lot on doing student focus groups and doing a survey of your students. And so that work will really focus on much more about how you know more about your students. I will say in informal conversations with colleges, I think all of us seem to have learned more about our students this year than maybe any year in our history. So given everything that's gone on, I really applaud all of you for the great work that you've done with that as well. We spared you from providing updates on events in 2021, but we are busy planning activities in 2021. As you can guess, most of our events will be virtual in 2021, if not all. We don't know yet. And we don't predict the future anymore. But we do expect that most of our events in 2021 will be virtual. We have seen really, one of the silver linings that has come out of the pandemic and our inability to travel has been, we've expanded the number of participants in a lot of our activities. And I feel very grateful that we have the opportunity to engage with more people at community colleges than we have in the past. And so if there is a silver lining in all of this, I think is that we feel a lot more connected with you, and we're able to provide you really accessible resources that we hope will be valuable to you. Another way that we are trying to communicate, engage with you is through some work that we're doing on Twitter. So I'm going to turn it over to Katie to talk about our Twitter work, and she's going to close us out. Katie?
Thank you. Okay, and we're going to do something that might be out of some of your comfort zone, because I'm actually going to ask you, if you're on Twitter, to join me over there. And I have just tweeted this question that you're seeing up on the screen. If you're not on Twitter, you don't have to leave. You can still talk to us through the Zoom chat. We're happy to have a conversation with you there as well. But I think Erica is going to give me the reins here. Or maybe I just need to take them, which I'm happy to do as well, because I have, just no.
Katie, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, super. Thank you. I'm, hold on, I'm tweeting.
Oh.
Hold, please. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen because I want to help you understand why I think Twitter is a cool tool. My screen is very large. I'm sorry if it's distracting to look at. I am going to try to help us all out by making things look bigger and show you why I love Twitter, because there are about 200 of us that have been engaging together in this conversation this afternoon. And we have been having a back channel conversation, that truly the hallway conversations, as Erica described it, simply by using a hashtag. And if you are not familiar with how the internets work, apparently that #, that's what it does in the internet world, is it aggregates like content. And as someone, I'm in a graduate program, and I'm very interested in sociological trends. I did not post this Alicia Keys thing. This is an ad. This is the only bad thing I think about social media, is you get caught up in all the ads, right? But you can actually go to a hashtag thread, even if you're not on Twitter. So if you don't have a Twitter profile and you want to see what I'm doing, you can just go to twitter.com, and you should be able to use a search and type in just what I did there, the MCSS Summit 20. And you'll be able to pull up this thread and see the latest tweets that use this hashtag. And Alicia Keys is just an ad, so we can actually, if you don't like it, like I like Alicia Keys, so I'm fine with it, but you can mute or block certain things if you don't like the ads you're getting. But you can also just scroll on by, and you can see that this is one of the only times I haven't really been tweeting with myself. sometimes I'm the only tweeter, and it's a little lonely out in the world like that. But you can see that lots of people, a couple of us certainly, but a lot of you as well who have been on the line with us have been tweeting, and you can follow along. Erica did not give us permission to post that. My other colleague said it was fine. So if you don't have a manager of network engagement soon, you'll know why. But you can see why it's cool to be able to, in socially distanced times, kind of use Twitter as a way to network. I posed the question, both on the slide and on Twitter, to pull you guys in, because we have been spending actually the last few weeks really seriously scrutinizing the work that we're doing, our own personal commitments and convictions to the values that we espouse at MCSS, including equity. We have talked about equity over and over. We've talked about it the wrong way. We've probably talked about it the right way sometimes too. And I think that that's all part of it when we're trying to advance a conversation that could be sensitive or we could be unfamiliar having. And so I am inviting you to join me and tell us how equity is central to your student success work. And you can see the reason that I didn't screen share right away is because I was already trying to put in my response to my own question, which again gets a little bit split personality when you start having conversations with yourself. But I invite you to go ahead and join us there. I'm going to go back over to the tweet thread and see what else is coming in, and you can see that people are commenting. There are two ways you can look at this. You can look at it as a thread, so you can actually pull up what I posted and then start to see people's responses, and I can like them. It's very, I've heard that studies have been done to show that there's a level of dopamine that increases in your brain when you get the little red like or the thumbs up on Facebook. So I'm going to go ahead and dopamine all over the place here so that we can all end the conversation today with happy thoughts. I'm also going to go over to the chat and see if anybody is adding anything over there. Besides my own plug to contact me if I can help you learn how to use the MTN better. Do feel free, if you don't care to engage on Twitter, to go ahead and put your comments in on the Zoom chat, and we can see how you're feeling about that. I'm going to go ahead and look here. Look at this. All right, I love it. Sheila is commenting about this isn't working the way that I want it to work, so I'm just going to go back over to the thread here. Yeah, I love it. Sheila is one of our MCSS mentors, and we had a email conversation about her decision to join Twitter had a lot to do with the NCC Stigma campaign that Dr. Steve Robinson, president at Lansing Community College, has championed. And I agree, he has used that this tool and that hashtag to spread a message that is sorely needed in society at large about the value of community colleges. I understand. I'm getting some private comments from people who don't care for the nasty side of social media, and I get that too. And I think you know, we don't want to push anybody out of their comfort zone here, but and we certainly don't want to put anybody in a position that would make them be under attack in that regard. Some of you hold very public positions as trustees or in other leadership positions on your campuses, so I totally understand that. But if I'm right, and I'd be curious to know, any of you that are still hanging out with us, if you're not on Twitter, did you have the opportunity, were you able to successfully use the hashtag without having an account? Is anybody willing to let me know if that worked for you or not? I think I can model it. So I use multiple browsers, and it helps accommodate my split personalities. But so if you go to Twitter, just like this, and just go to twitter.com. I did this once before. I think I went over here maybe. Let's see. I also keep saying, and I'm going to say it again today because it's true to what I'm trying to do. This is all a grand experiment. I don't know why I am the tweeter in chief, because I actually sometimes don't know what I'm doing. I probably shouldn't admit that to all of you. But here we are. I think this is where you go to explore. Oh man, there was a certain link you could go to, and I am not doing a great job of sharing it with you guys. There it is. If you go to twitter.com/explore, so I'm not logged into any account right now, but I am typing in our hashtag. There it is. Thank you, Kaylee. Kaylee gave that link. Yes, some of you are saying you have to go. That's fine. This is a chance for us to interact and have some conversation with you on Twitter, on chat. Certainly, if you want to raise your hand or ask questions verbally, we will actually let you talk. If that's your preferred media. But you can see here, now that I've probably thoroughly confused everyone, the link that you can use if you're not on Twitter yourself has the explore word at the end. And then you simply type in our hashtag from the summit, and it gives you the opportunity to, just like I was doing before, actually look at what's been happening on this hashtag. And you can see that we're getting some more responses. So I'll just use this view. Wow, now it's really big, but that's fantastic. You can see it probably much better. So yeah, preserving access. That's
make your screen this big when we're Zooming together.
What's that, Jenny?
Finally see it.
Yeah.
I want you always to make your screen this big when we're
I
Zooming.
will. Yeah. Jenny and I had a meeting yesterday, and she's like, I can't see it. I have a monitor that's the size of a small television, and I know that it comes through strange when I do screen share, but it helps me multitask. I can do 3 columns of work all at the same time. And I only got this bigger one because we had to buy my son, well, we didn't have to, but we chose to buy my son a new computer for virtual school, and I gave him my 29-inch monitor, and then I decided to upgrade. Now you know all of my dirty little secrets. I love it. The themes here are around preserving access, making sure students are successful in setting and achieving their goals. That's great, Lindsay. Thank you. Yep, community colleges are more important than ever to equitable access and advancing the economic ladder. Mara from Mott, great comment. P. Miller Biz, Boss Mama. Equity at the heart and center of your work with My Best, certainly. I love it. People writing in the comments about stretching yourselves. I appreciate it. This is something that I was grumbly about. And when I was in graduate school, several of my classes required that we used Twitter. And I was so mad. I was grumbly. I was like, I'm getting graded on this. Like, this is baloney. And now I'm grateful because it was something I did to stretch myself. And it has given me an opportunity to engage with people that I never thought would talk to me. I know that's a weird thing to say, but on Twitter, you can reach people on Twitter sometimes who you could never get through on email or just pick up the phone and call. So it's been fun. Anybody else want to share? Erica is also maybe a grumbly tweeter. Erica, do you have any, have you come to a good place with your tweeting? She's giving me eyes. I appreciate all of you that are tweeting with us and sharing the information. When we actually started talking about engaging more fully in the digital space with particularly faculty, even before COVID hit, because we felt like we love our core group of folks, the people that come to all the events and that log into all of the Zooms. It's fantastic to see so many of you, and we feel your passion even across the miles and the bandwidth. But Twitter can be a way to get deeper involved in kind of those back channels or the cultural feelings that are sometimes shared among faculty and among other student success champions. So it's a great way for us to get to see and hear from some more of you. I was loving this comment earlier from Robin Westsmith, who wasn't very familiar with us and said that she's learned a lot from what we've been doing and wants to get more active with us. And again, that's an opportunity, I think, where we can be active and engaged with one another through Twitter. And I think that that's fantastic. Does anyone have questions? The other thing that we're trying to do is make sure people feel well supported. We did hear from some people that Twitter wasn't their forte, and I got a request to maybe give more information about how to use Twitter. And so now I'm navigating over to a section of our website, and I'm going to put another link in the chat box where you can find the same section. The Birds of a Feather Twitter efforts are right at the top. And there's a quick video that shows what we're trying to do with our effort, but then there's also a quick video that has me clicking around, showing people how to use Twitter and how to engage with it in the ways that we had in mind. So if that feels like you, or you have some colleagues you think might be interested in checking it out with you, they might want to go to the link and get a feel for how to do it. I've also been supporting some people who've created new profiles and had questions about, well, like, what should I put in, or, you know, what picture should I use? You should use a picture. It doesn't have to be your face. It could be your logo. It could be your dog, your cat, or some beautiful scenery. And sometimes I'll show myself as an example of a profile because it's nothing fancy. It's a bunch of my textbooks. I got a new headshot, so there's my new headshot. But you can see I'm getting all kinds of notices, which is cool. Oh, good answer, Christina, about using OER as a way to center your work around equity. I love that. And another Christina commenting about making sure students have the tools they need to be successful in their courses. The Chromebook loan program is very popular. That's fantastic. A lot of schools, K-12 and post-secondary, are finding that they have to help their students with access both to internet but also to technical devices that are reliable. And it's been amazing to see that happening across the state. Dr. Oriens would talk about data and particularly examining equity gaps. And again, I was having a back channel conversation with Dr. Hearns from Washtenaw Community College, who will be moderating next week's session on mobility and equity. And she was saying this focus on data is a big deal to that conversation. And truly, that's where it starts. I do remember Sheila Jones, who's Sheehan Jones on Twitter, also mentioning in another conversation that data is the place to start, but it has to go deeper than that. We have to be able to ask the right questions about data related to equity and make sure that everybody understands equity implications that data is showcasing. All right, let's see what else we got coming in. Oh, excellent, Sam. That's right, different options to students regardless of their race, ethnicity, and certainly probably their socioeconomic status. Shanna is one of our faculty members from HFC, and she coined a term called device equity in a previous conversation that I loved, and it relates to that disparity of resources where students either don't have the internet bandwidth they need or don't have the equitable access to the devices and tools they need to be successful in online learning. I love that. Thank you. Cool. Well, we're getting some good stuff. Oh, Precious is sharing on the chat. Thank you, Precious. And I am not leading you anywhere but down what's that Robert Frost poem? The path less traveled. Except Twitter has one of them.
Road less traveled.
The road less traveled. Except that Twitter has one of the healthiest user bases of all social media platforms. So it's not necessarily the road less traveled, but we're trying to travel it for good. We're trying to. We have had serious conversations about the really negative ways that people use Twitter, or the ways that Twitter can. What you post on Twitter can sometimes come back around out of context or be taken into different contexts. So we want to reclaim Twitter for good and make it a good, positive meeting space for all of us. So I think we're probably winding down unless there are other questions. We have lost a healthy contingent of our participants here. Are there any final words of wisdom or comments or questions that folks want to pose before we say goodbye? The other cool thing about Twitter is you can keep the conversation going anytime. So keep checking out what's going on and make sure you contact us if you have questions. Otherwise, we'll hope to see everybody tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Colleagues, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say thank you to those that have stuck around. This has actually been a pretty good approximation of the feeling that you get when the session is over and you're just chit-chatting with people. Minus the hugs and the cookies, but there will be a glass of wine in a little while at my house. I don't know about
That's
y'all.
what the dopamine hearts are for. Dopamine hearts.
That's right. That's right. So thank you all, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow and the rest of this week and next week.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, thanks.
Oh, Isaac says bye.